everyone on the webinar. Good morning, good morning. It's Monday. Let me see if I can stop that thing that's there. If you're on the Facebook Live and would like to see the slides, then if you put into the chat register, we will be able to share the link with you to register. Let's see if I can move that up. Someone spoke to me about being able to watch two screens. And so let's see. We've got 5 participants already on the webinar. Good morning to everyone. Let's see. Good morning, good morning. I'm going to jump straight in, and wouldn't it be lovely if I could share my screen without seeing all that stuff. I'm going to do it one day. So good morning, this is a dose of sunshine. If you're watching this, you are here on a Monday morning, maybe you're overseas and this is your afternoon. Regardless, you can still have a dose of sunshine, right? Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Diane. Hope you're feeling better today, Diane. I know you've had a bit of a challenge recently, so we are going to jump straight into it. And today, we're talking about releasing emotional patterns. I'm going to have a sip of tea because there's so much to just something, a feeling that you're having or an emotion that you're having that can be something that's coming up as a pattern over and over again. And so let's discuss all of that and how that works in the body. So for those who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Elizabeth Eleanor. If you're watching the webinar, somewhere along the lines you've worked out that you've seen me somewhere. Good morning, Nicolette. And I am a spiritual mentor and healer. I have been for over 20 years now. I used to live in Far North Queensland in the rainforest, and now I live in Sydney. Spirit guided me down here because one of the things about me is that my whole life is about shifting my vibration to the highest realms that I possibly can and be in the physical body at the same time. And so I, as Elizabeth, didn't particularly want to live down in Sydney. However, that's where I was guided, and I've had a lot of spiritual growth going through that process. So that, to me, is a blessing, and I'd much rather the spiritual growth than where my choice is of living. So, and who's to know what's going to happen in the future? What my journey is here in Sydney, and I'm making the best out of it. So don't think that I'm saying that I don't want to be here at all. So I've had a huge spiritual journey since I woke up. I would say I started waking up when I was about 15, but didn't know it. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's been a really interesting experience, and I've had some amazing, especially when you first wake up to spirit, some crazy stuff starts happening to you. Nicolette, I'm sure that you've had that experience, right? Where, you know, I've had names in yellow pages in directories be exactly the same name as something I just got in a dream, and there'd be, you know, 20 people in the telephone book and one person that has his full name on it, you know, that I had to ring, and like just crazy stuff that now it just becomes part of your life. And so when someone's going through their first spiritual awakening, you look and go, I remember when it was that fun, you know, because it sort of becomes part of your reality. So and it's still exciting. I'm still loving the journey, and I'm enjoying sharing with people how for them to go through that process, how to release their patterns and shift their vibration so that they're more in tune with their higher self. I've had 444 show up lots for me this week. Yes, isn't it interesting? Good morning, Irene. I love numbers. I've been really enjoying that. And I just sent you the dimension thing, Nicolette, as well. You've seen that. So we will keep going. So today we're talking about emotions. And emotions are a really interesting thing because they're like waves, right? They ebb and flow. They're, good morning, Anne. There's something that they're different to a mood. You know, an emotion can come up and it can come down and it can be gone before you're even aware of it. So they're really powerful and they provide momentum, initiating some sort of action. So you have a thought that creates an emotion, and then you have an action from that emotion. And so, you know, I have a thought, I get angry, and then you lash out. Or I have a thought, I feel really happy about it, and it makes you dance. You know, like there's so many different ways that emotions can affect your body. I have a thought of a past experience. It makes me feel sad and depressed, and so I don't do anything that day, or I self-sabotage and I start eating, or I start, you know, horrible things that the kids do these days with, you know, cutting themselves and all sorts of horrible things that has become the norm in our children's society. So this is why it's really, really important to speak about emotions and to get it clear that they do not have to control our life. We can release them, right? So most of us are aware of the negative side of an emotion. However, do you know how to access the positive side of an emotion? So when, and that can be really tricky if you have got something blocked. And I'm jumping ahead again. However, when you've got something blocked and it's causing a pattern that you can't get out of, it's really challenging to connect to the positive side of something because it draws you into that negative energy over and over again. So one of the most common defenses is to ignore, repress, or stuff our emotions down into our body. And eventually that becomes a physical or emotional pain, and we suppress it, and it becomes a challenge in our body. And this is where they say 80 to 90% of disease is from stress and emotional patterns caught in the body. And so when you've got something that's from your past that you haven't looked at and dealt with, it gets stuck in your body, and that is how we can get into challenges with heart problems or diabetes, or, you know, all of these things, cancer, depression, anxiety, all of these things are from past experiences that we haven't looked at and haven't released in our body. So if you've got an emotion, there's two things that can happen. You can release it if you know how to, and there's a positive way of doing that. You can express it by saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I just needed to get that out. You speak your truth. You become aware of what's going on for you in your reality, and you share that with those that are around you so that you can shift the vibration within you. That's a really healthy way of doing it. When you are aware of how to deal with your emotions. I recently just had this experience, and was getting trapped with a thought that was happening for me, had the realization of what was going on, and then needed to express it to my family. This is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm doing. They all dealt with it. I dealt with it different than what my mind was telling me it was going to happen. And the consequences were that I was able to release that energy out of me instead of getting it trapped and having, potentially anxiety through that process and falling apart, because it was a very intense process with my mum having a heart attack, and this was an end result to that. And so being able to, just because you're aware of your emotions doesn't mean you're not going to have them anymore, right? So when you are aware of them and you can release them and speak your truth and share that, and all of your chakras are in a line, so you're aware of where you are as your base chakra, you know that this is how you're feeling, this is who I am, how you are in relationship to others, your second chakra, what your purpose is, your third chakra and your power center, and where you stand with it, how you feel in your heart, how you emotionally feel about it. Are you able to speak your truth about it? What is happening on a spiritual level in your mind about the whole process? And are you connected to your higher self through that process, so that all of those chakras are really connected and you're guided through that process? Or you can release emotions in a negative way by feeling bad, by lashing out, by becoming passive aggressive. This is the powerless process that can happen, right? This is why I like, my foundational work is the 3 powers, is power, powerless, and empowered, because negative way of releasing can have massive connotations on so many people, including yourself, because it's not a good way of healing the body. The other way of emotions is holding them. So holding them into the body by redirecting them, channeling them into positive expressions can also, that is not as good as releasing them in one way. Well, it depends on what the emotion is, right? That can be a whole series in itself. However, holding your emotion, for example, one of the things that I did when I was, in fact, it's still a pattern, just haven't had it for a while, excuse me, is when I'm stressed, I clean. And I'm talking clean. I used to actually clean the house, spring clean the house every 6 months. But my kids would come home and I'd be cleaning, and Carly'd say, are you stressed about something? Could she see the way I was actually cleaning and know that there was something going on? I was processing information in my head, and that was just part of me redirecting the emotion into a way of dealing with it while my body processed it, so that I could then speak it or act upon it the way I needed to. The other way of holding is stuffing and blocking the energy, which is pain, and that can happen emotionally or physically. It depends on what the situation was and the pattern. And that is what a lot of people do. They stuff it down. They don't even recognize it as being an emotion anymore, and it becomes a physical manifestation, or it becomes an emotional pattern of depression or anxiety or, anger. There's so many different ways, and they're patterns that get caught into a loop. And so you think that's who you are. I'm an angry person. Cancel and delete that, because I'm not. And however, that's how people can see themselves. I'm not good at this. I'm blah blah blah. I'm this, I'm that, and all of those things. You think that is who you are. However, it could be that you're trapped in an emotional pattern of not feeling good enough, not being aware of various things that are holding you back, and so therefore you can release those things so that they're not causing any challenges in your body, and you're free to manifest your highest potential, which is absolutely anything. We've got the ability to create our reality to be our highest version of ourselves here on the planet. So I want to give you some things to reflect. If you're on the webinar, you'll be getting the recording of this, so you can go back and you can pause this. Reflection. So do you find yourself at the mercy of your emotions? Is your emotional pattern something that you find really challenging? I'm just reading this. Good morning, Christine. One seems to be come up a lot for me lately. What if those around you are not in a space to listen and react negatively towards you for expressing how you feel? That is, let's talk about that. Anna, I know that you're part of my group coaching program, the Awaken the Lioness, so we can talk about that on our call today, because there's a way of dealing with being as present as you possibly can, and if those around you don't understand, there's a way of working with that. Okay, so is shifting out of a negative emotional state difficult for you? That's something that can be really challenging for people, is when they've found themselves getting frustrated or getting lonely or getting annoyed or angry or resentful, or one of those, lower vibrational emotions, they can't get out of that state. One of the things that was my pattern way back was that I would shut down. You wouldn't know it now. However, I was actually anorexic when I was younger, and it was that my whole throat chakra would shut down. So it wasn't that I couldn't even talk. I actually physically couldn't put food in my mouth. So I couldn't swallow the food because my chakra was so blocked that it wouldn't allow my body to actually intake nourishment into my body. And I just couldn't get out of it. I knew that it was something that was a challenge for me. I just couldn't get out of it because I wasn't able to access the emotions of where it was coming from, because I was too young, and no one around me actually understood that either, because in those days that wasn't talked about, right? Do you get pulled into the emotional vortex of those around you? Anna, that's something that we can discuss. That's sort of the question you were just asking. Do you find yourself repeatedly responding in the same negative way to some situations, regardless of your best intentions to do otherwise? Something triggers you, and next thing you're saying the same thing as you used to, and you can't shift that pattern, or you have challenges with that. Do your negative emotions seem to be beyond your control? And in certain situations, are you stuck in the powerless cycle, which is something that I work with women all the time, is that whole powerless, and moving out of that and sitting in empowered instead. So emotions have a negative and a positive polarity. We need to be able to access both polarities of all our emotions to be fully alive. Avoiding situations that can cause emotional pain limits our life experiences. So, depending on where you're at in life, one of the things that I speak about is the 5 people that influence you. And if you've got people around you that are causing challenges in your life, then you want to avoid them, right? However, when you are really deeply in a place of being empowered, then things that used to trigger you, or things that used to bring you down, when you're really deeply connected to yourself, they don't affect you in the same way anymore. And so you don't have that emotional trigger or that emotional pain anymore. You want to be able to deal with as much as you possibly can, to be fully present to who you are and to enjoy all of life experiences. So I'm just going to quickly look at the chat. Yes, there is a call today, Christine, and it's at 10 a.m. Yes. So there's 4 levels to dealing with emotional challenges or releasing emotional blocks out of your body, right? One of them is the spiritual awareness, being aware of what's happening, the patterns that are being created, or the lessons that you need to learn from a higher perspective. Identifying the feelings, the emotional perspective, identifying the feelings and how it makes you feel in your body. The mental as well, recognizing and understanding the lessons and patterns. Where did they come from? What is happening in your body, in your mental state? How come you're feeling this way? Does it relate to something from previous experience in your childhood or previous time in your life? Good morning, Fiona. And also the physical. Clear the cellular memory that's stored in the body. So For those that don't know my story, and I don't talk about it that much, 9 years or so ago, I found myself with a 15-centimeter fibroid. And because of my age, they wanted to cut my uterus out. Not saying that, you know, one gynecologist after the other was referring me to people because they didn't know how to deal with me, right? And so I went into researching what a fibroid was, because 15 centimeters is apparently a really big fibroid. I listened to a ABC Radio National interview with someone, and they were talking about fibroids, and someone rang up who had a 10 centimeter fibroid, and everyone was going, oh my gosh, that's massive. And okay, mine must have been really big then. And so I studied fibroids and just, you know, worked out what they are. They're not quite sure what they are, but there are, for those that don't know, a fibroid is a non-cancerous tumor in the uterus. And there's a whole heap of scenarios of why they think they're created. Just to let you know, 70% of women have fibroids and don't even know it, right? I had no idea. I had no bloating. My cycle was regular, no pain. Everything indicated that I had a healthy body, and I had this thing growing in my body. And so, long story short, I actually expelled this by myself. I ended up in hospital. However, through the process of like being in hospital for 2 weeks, it was actually coming out of my body. And the doctors were saying, that's impossible. Like, you know, one part would come out because it broke apart. One part would come out, and the doctors were saying, no, it's not the fibroid. You can't get rid of a fibroid this way. It's got to be a polyp or something, right? Well, the third time they did an internal examination, and they went, well, actually it is the fibroid, because now you've only got about a quarter of it left. We have no idea how you're doing it. They had all of the gynae students. They had the head guy talking to me. They had all these people in the hospital coming to visit me, and none of them could understand how I was doing it, right? I sat next to a woman that had been on Oprah once at a convention thing, and she said that I was telling her my story, and she said I should write a book about it, because she had been in the industry for 20 years and never heard of anyone getting rid of a fibroid this way. Now, long story, there's more to it. I just wanted to tell you really the gist of it, because what I did was I looked at all 4 aspects of this: the emotional, the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. Instead of working with the fibroid, I worked with my whole body. How can I be as clean as possible? So I did a whole heap of things to my physical body to be in an optimal state. I also looked at the mental side of it. How had I actually created this? So that was my spiritual awareness as well. All through it, there was a part where I could have died, but because I was spiritually aware, I had this moment where my spirit told me it's okay to lose your uterus. You know, like if that's part of my process. I went, oh, okay, cool, I'm there. I'll go and get it operated. And because of that, I ended up in hospital. If I hadn't have had that thought, I'd had 2 weeks of pain. And after that thought and releasing what my uterus, you know, how my uterus was in my body and what it had given me, because of that thought, I had 3 days of no pain after 2 weeks of pain every single day. And so when you're really connected to your spirit and what is going on for the path, regardless of what everybody else thinks, like I worked with a woman that had cancer, and she was freaking out because she had to have her breast removed. And she was so upset about it because she was a spiritual woman, and she was crying that, you know, like, how come I can't fix it like other people can? You know, does that mean I'm not good? I'm not spiritually aware? Does that mean I'm not as powerful as other people? And I reprimanded her because I said, what your journey is and what somebody else's journey is completely different. What if you got this so that you could go into hospital and you're going to affect all of those doctors? You might be laying in bed and someone walks past the room and you smile at them and they were going to jump off the building, but because you smiled, it changed their life and they decided not to jump. Like, I mean, that's extreme, but you seriously do not know what your journey is and why it is. And we've got to stop thinking that, or judging what I'm doing compared to somebody else, because what my spiritual journey is completely different to what somebody else's is. And we've just got to listen here instead of here. I'm getting on a rant. I apologize. So I also looked at the emotional side of why, like, how did this all happen? How did I feel about it? And as I said, I didn't take on that there was a sadness or, you know, anything like that. I actually just stepped into almost, I wasn't numb. I was more aware of my feelings and then connecting it to my higher self and my spirit, then being aware of my thoughts, and then working with the physical body. And because of that, I absolutely, you know, in my situation, thank you, Christine, I'm welcome to rant. Thank you, hun. It's so true, right? We tend to judge what other people's journey is compared to ours, and it's totally irrelevant. In my particular situation, I was able to release the fibroid. I still have my uterus. I don't have any cuts. There's nothing, like, they didn't have to go in. And yet, because I'd surrendered and went, if that's what needs to happen, I'm ready for it and I'm okay with it, because if it was part of my spiritual journey to lose my uterus, then I was all good. That's what I'm here for. And so because I surrendered, because I connected to my higher self, I still have my uterus. That might not have been the case for other people, but, you know, it's all relevant. And so all of these things that need to be factored in when you're releasing an emotional pattern. And if you've got something pretty big going on and you've got a cycle that you just can't get out of for some reason, you just can't work on it by yourself, then you need to be aware of looking at all of those factors to see how to release that cycle. So it's sort of like an, you know, you need an acupuncture point to get that energy to flow again, instead of it being backwards and forwards and cycling just like this. So thank you for listening. I do get into a bit of a rant with these things sometimes. If you're watching the webinar and you would like to connect, this is a little QR code. You can jump on and it'll go to my business page, which is The Spiritual Warrior. You can connect with me there. You can see all sorts of stuff. You can, if this is your first webinar, you can see all of the previous ones. You won't see the slides. However, I do a Facebook Live on here. And so you'll be able to see those previous ones. I've had some interesting ones lately that have been quite popular, one on angels and one on dimensions. And so if you want to go back in and check out those, you can on that business page. If anything that I've said has caused some ears to prick up, if you're weren't aware of some of the things that you needed to look at when it comes to releasing an emotion, then, and need a little bit more guidance around that, please just give me a yes please in the chat, and we'll be able to send you a link to do a free 30-minute consciousness assessment, so that we can talk about that a little bit further and see if there's any tools that I can give you or tips that I can give you. And if you are part of Women of Light, we've got a meetup on October the 29th with the beautiful Carmel Murphy, and she reads faces. So she's going to share with us discovering 3 things your face is telling you. So that's on October the 29th. If you're interested in that meetup, just throw into the chat meetup, and we will we'll be able to send you the link for that to register as well. So good, Anne. I'm glad that that this has been of value to you. So I need to hear. Actually, I don't need. I really love hearing that what comes out of my mouth has got value for someone. So excellent, Dell and Diane. I'll send you, or Irene will send you the link for the meetup so that you can join that as well. So lovely to have you on here, Jody. Thank you for attending. So good to have super value. Thank you so much, Jody. Take care, everyone. Thoroughly enjoy your week. What are you doing today to set yourself up for the rest of the week so that you are so that you're creating your best reality for the week, so that we are moving. I'm going to do a thing on planning. That's what I'm going to do. If anyone's interested in planning, I just thought about the way I planning for the future. If you're interested in finding out more about that, I can do a webinar on that. Awesome. I'll do that. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I will see you, if not sooner, but on next week's A Dose of Sunshine. Take care. Thanks, everyone, on the webinar. And I will send all those details. Take care. See ya.